All right, let's now shift our attention to what is happening in the state of Israel, where Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister has now spent 2 days in court defending himself in a corruption trial that has been making way for more than 5 years now. And many people say that the crisis in Israel is all because of this corruption scandal that Netanyahu is embroiled in. Benjamin Netanyahu, the sitting Prime Minister of the state of Israel, took the witness stand on Tuesday and Wednesday, making him the first ever sitting Prime Minister to be a criminal defendant in a court of law. Now, the hearing took place in Tel Aviv's Yafa District Court in an underground room for security reasons. Only select media personnel were allowed to witness the hearing. Now, the incumbent leader faces charges of bribery, fraud and breach of public trust across 3 separate cases called Case 1000, Case 2000 and also Case 4000. Now, 2 of the 3 cases accuse the Prime Minister of bribing and seeking favors from media enterprises to push forward a positive press coverage. Netanyahu has denied all of these charges against him and has described them to be an ocean of absurdities at his testimony on both days. Now, the Prime Minister has also slammed certain Israeli journalists and media outlets for their leftist stance. His key point of defense against the accusations is that, as the Prime Minister, he is trying to change what he's described as the monolithic Israeli media market. Now, it remains unclear if this is the end of Netanyahu's testimony in the ongoing trial. The court has asked the Prime Minister to appear at least 3 times next week as well.
Okay.
And also to give us more insights in terms of what is happening with this trial with Benjamin Netanyahu, we're joined by Mr. James Malou, who is a foreign and defense analyst and an expert on West Asia, is joining us live from London. Mr. Malou, thank you very much indeed, sir, for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. Now, a lot of the critics of Benjamin Netanyahu say that the case is actually watertight. The prosecution says that it has got very solid grounds to, of course, proceed with this case. That is why we are here at this moment. But Netanyahu is describing this case and the charges leveled against him as an ocean of absurdities. What's your take on this?
And in addition to that as well, he's also said he's looked forward very much because this has been going on since 2016. He's been accused of this since 2016. The indictments came about in 2019. There were actually 4 indictments. You mentioned case 1000, 2000, and you moved on to 4000. There was a case 3. It involved submarines from Germany. There wasn't any evidence against him, and the actual prosecution was forced to go ahead and drop that particular case. So we're left with 2 cases that is actually focused very much on Netanyahu seeking more favorable media coverage. Those are the 2 cases. And I have to tell you, in all Western countries, you've got prime ministers who regularly speak with editors of newspapers and news outlets. And the other case is a little bit more complicated because it involves his time as Prime Minister. He was also Minister of Communications. It involved the telephone company Bezek and somebody taking over. There was a particular deal. All this needs to be come out within the court. As you said, that Netanyahu appears 3 times a week. His team of lawyers wanted to get it down to 2 times a week simply because Israel is still at war right now. It's fighting still on 7 different fronts. Right. But the courts said, no, we can't do this. This has been postponed for long enough. It will be 3 times a week. And the cases start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Tel Aviv, as you just said.
That's correct. And as you said, that Netanyahu has been saying that he's been waiting for years to come out and speak the truth about these cases. But here's the thing. A lot of his critics say that the reason why there is complete chaos and crisis that Israel currently finds itself in are because of these cases that Netanyahu is fighting. Now, the families of the hostages waited for more than 14 months. They say that perhaps the reason why Netanyahu is not willing to strike a deal and bring back the hostages is because he wants to prolong this war for as long as he can so that he does not have to face the long arms of justice.
So let me tell you, there are 4 different forums with regard to the hostage families of hostages. And I've spoken and met with many of those hostages. One of them, which is the most popular one, actually is supported by 7 families. Now, remember, there's 100 people still left in those terror dungeons inside of Gaza. But there's just one, which is the most popular one. The name is the Family Forum something, which I don't recall right now. Just 7 families. There are other families who have actually been saying for many, many months that the IDF have to actually move full force into Rafah to bomb, etc., etc. There's another two of them, another two separate ones as well that very much support Netanyahu. So it's not true to say that the hostages or the hostage families are actually against Netanyahu. I know that many of them are talking directly to Netanyahu.
Right.
Him and his wife actually speak directly to the families, and they're very, very happy with well, they're not obviously happy. They want the hostages out. But as the Americans said, and we've got right now the U.S. envoy back in Israel at the moment discussing another hostage deal.
Right.
The Americans also confirmed a few days ago.
This is precisely what it is. If I can just interject you there, the minute the hostage crisis ends, the focus in Israel will be back on getting those hostages in. And this is where Netanyahu seems to be stumbling, because this war has created an atmosphere where people are not willing to talk about the corruption case that Netanyahu faces. Do you think, very quickly, that if the war were to come to an end, Netanyahu will completely have to answer to the Israeli public about the case of corruption that he faces?
Well, he's already answering that at the moment. He's in the dock today. He was in the dock yesterday.
Right.
He will be in the dock next week and the week after that. So he's already doing that at the same time as running the country. And as he said, as I said, he is looking forward to the fact he's able to go and answer his critics on this. But I have to tell you,
very quickly,
a lot of the cases is actually based on those who worked with Netanyahu, who were actually convicted, thrown into jail, and a lot of them now are revealing that they were actually coerced into signing a paper and that their families were threatened, etc. So now Netanyahu and his team say that the case is falling apart, and he is quite confident that he will get off on all three of these indictments.
All right, that is what Netanyahu's side says. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Malu, for joining us and getting us all those insights. It, of course, remains to be seen as to how this case, of course, proceeds in the court in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much for getting us that perspective there.